coffee time?
Just because we're bringing you on, Jason. I got this email this morning at 5:47 in the morning, and I saved it because I knew we were having Sam on. It just so happened. Would you read what it says there at the top?
Let's see. The Athletic All Sports News.
Yeah, that is my Apple subscription renewal.
Yeah.
What you see, the price there and everything.
Oh, geez. Here you go.
Hey, I was going to say, not only that, it's my second renewal I've received. For some reason, I have two accounts. They renew, because I think my son has one, is why. And they renew, instead of me giving him my login, I do it the right way, Sam, and he has his own little login. And so that means that my yearly The Athletic bill is $120. That's $10 a month that I pay for The Athletic for 2 subscriptions. Sam, it's a steal. It's an absolute steal. Happy to do it.
Thank you, buddy.
Although
you're just gonna whine.
No, I mean, I could. I will whine. Here's how I will whine. I don't have anything. I actually even have a hat that most people think is an Athletic hat, but It's actually Acu Stadium in England, but it's the same colors and the A and everything. But can you talk to Jonathan Athletic or whoever runs the place, whoever owns it? Like, what about like an old school phone like they did for Sports Illustrated? Like a football or a baseball or a basketball phone.
Flip phone?
Yeah, sure. Like you buy a subscription and you should get some sort of a hat, a phone, something, a keychain. Just saying.
You personally get invited to the Amick household for the next Easter, Dave. That's what you get.
The one you still owe me?
Yeah.
From what was that, 15 years ago?
To watch Niners football. Just because I got to shut neighbor John up. He doesn't actually think we're friends because you never come over.
Tell him. We would hang out a lot more, but you live in like Galt, dude.
Wow, is he getting further south?
I don't live in Galt. I live in Elk Grove. But yes, I hear you. Yes, I'll pass that along. So you want more swag?
Yeah, I not more swag. I want any swag. I want
swag.
Some form of swag. Giannis has a lot of swag. Look at that transition. And
nice.
I'm just going to start here, Sam, and I'm going to ask you a non-journalist question. I'm just asking you your gut, your instinct, because I said earlier today, I feel like after a lot of stops and starts, doesn't this seem a little bit different? Like it feels like it's actually going to happen this time?
Maybe.
Okay.
And apologies to the YouTube audience because it's coffee time and I'm doing that again.
That's fine.
Honestly, when we pursued the story yesterday after Shams dropped his tweet, and I'm sure you saw the Doc Rivers pregame press conference. It's kind of wild how the Bucks continue to. They're not trying to say there's nothing to see here, but they do pretty vehemently continue to push back on some of the reporting. And with that in mind, you had, the insistence that there has not been a trade demand. You had, Doc saying nothing is different. So, I don't know. It is a little weird. And you have, pressure, no question. I mean, you lose 8 out of 9 games during a season when, it was really abundantly clear that he was going to be evaluating his options, and they're barreling towards the bottom of the Eastern Conference. Yes, it feels like it's going that way, but I don't know that I'm convinced yet that there's going to be a midseason trade just because of how complicated that is. But, we'll see where it goes. Yesterday was loud, and then the Bucks end up holding a players only meeting and finding a way to beat the second best team in basketball right now. So it was quite a day for them.
So when it's worded, Sam, that Giannis is having discussions, okay, maybe semantically he did not ask for a trade, but what do you think is behind that? Because I try to look at it, all right, they have Giannis. You don't want to move him if you don't have to. I don't know how they get better. I think there's a couple of trades they can make, but nothing that I think vaults them into the top of the East. So what do you think those discussions were like if Giannis in the front office truly did have those?
Well, again, trying to get clarity there. I think.
Do you want to call us
last
back?
Summer? Yeah, right. Exactly. Thanks, guys. You're supposed to know this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing to read, though, isn't it? I mean, that's a tough place to read historically, is it not? Not one of those, like, everyone's talking all the time. Is Milwaukee in that whole situation kind of a tough read over the years?
Well, I mean, we're lucky enough. Here's my athletic commercial, since you're such a happy subscriber, is that we have, we don't have beat writers on every team. We have, as you know, we don't have one on the Kings. We have a beat writer in Eric Name in Milwaukee who is as embedded as anybody.
Come on,
and
Eric.
so
Eric. We were just playing that earlier.
Eric
Yes.
Name is, I mean, he's all over it. I'll say this: we know that Giannis expressed some level of interest in going to the Knicks last summer, and that alone is enough to make you say, okay, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube there. But the Knicks didn't really want him at that time. I don't know if they're any more willing to pivot at this point. And I shouldn't say it's as simple as they didn't want him. It's just the timing was not feasible, and they were actually thinking they had a title contending team themselves. So now, is it still Knicks focused in those conversations? Is there another team in the mix? When I talked to other teams yesterday, that is a major factor, is that, like often in these situations, the star player is going to be in control, when it comes to where he wants to go. So that's a key question, because he has next year on his contract and then he can opt out. So from a leverage standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense for a team, who isn't on his list to go all in with that little time left on his contract.
Do you buy that San Antonio and could you see Oklahoma City popping in? We were discussing earlier, Sam. You're 21-1. Does Sam Presti really want to rock the boat like that? But everybody seems to think San Antonio is what's the opposite of a dark horse? The light horse? I don't know, but one of the favorites to get him.
Maybe in terms of their ability to get him. I personally, I can't pretend to know exactly how Giannis sees San Antonio. I do have a good sense of Giannis's kind of business mentality, and San Antonio makes no damn sense in that regard.
Really?
Like the New York thing, when that came out, there was not a bone in my body that was surprised, because there is the guy who grew up in Greece, extremely poor, selling sunglasses and CDs on the street, taking his this literally Disney movie life from that to where he is now, and who is considers himself very business savvy. The idea of going to the Big Apple and taking his profile to an even greater level is something that I was not surprised about. That doesn't, San Antonio is where you go to just play ball.
Sure.
And while he loves the game, that doesn't fit in with, I don't think, what he's trying to do. But I don't, that's not to say that there's no chance. But yeah, as far as assets that the Spurs have and ability to put something on the table, if you're John Horst and that's the Bucks GM, and if you finally give in and decide to move him, then you're certainly going to be looking at a lot of what the Spurs have.
So, based on that response, Sam, do you think the pool is a lot smaller if, in fact, the Bucks want to? I mean, is that a New York, L.A., Miami, San Francisco? Like, what are we talking? The classic big markets as the only options?
Maybe. I mean, yeah. I think the Warriors one is worth revisiting, as far as like getting clarity again on. Last I had heard from some of the principal Warriors stakeholders, Giannis had not ever signaled that he wanted to be there. But Joe Lacob and that ownership group have managed to turn that franchise into kind of, when they moved it to San Francisco, part of their mentality was, kind of the gateway to the eastern side of the globe.
Yeah.
And they've done that. So profile wise, Silicon Valley, all those things, they can check more boxes. Certainly Miami, has still got an extremely unique place in the market. So yeah, I mean, that's where my mind would go. And even independent of everything I said before about whether or not he's actually asked for a trade right now and all that, I mean, this is a bad basketball team.
Right.
And and he's too old at this point to waste much time with a bad basketball team.
Speaking of bad basketball teams, even though they won last night, the Clippers are maybe the surprise of the NBA as to how bad they're doing, especially considering they've had Kawhi and James Harden and a few people on the floor for much of the year. Chris Paul and that whole debacle, the plane delay, and then sending him home and all that. What did you make out of that whole situation?
Craziness, not to make it about me. You can hear that I'm still struggling with good old this winter cold I got. It did not help to be driving back from the Warriors game 2 nights ago, already having a pretty long night, having the phone blow up because of the Chris Paul thing, then having to track that late into the night, then waking up super early and go ahead and play your background violin music. Like you're playing about a job that's
everyone's
pretty
sick
cool.
right now,
Yeah.
dude. That I know how it's.
Dude, I'm tired.
I think Katie
why.
Christensen started the whole thing,
Yeah.
and now everybody. G-Man's struggling. You're struggling. It's all right.
I was struggling. I was fresh out of bed when I jumped on with you guys. That's why I'm desperately getting my coffee here.
That boy.
But yes, it's from a news standpoint, it's been an insane, 36 hours. The Chris Paul thing is crazy. We wrote a deep story on it that I enjoyed putting together. A lot of that stuff, it was kind of out there, but like Chris, I think the easiest way of breaking that one down is like Chris didn't read the room enough to know that just because, in San Antonio, to a lesser degree, Golden State, but Oklahoma City, all these places Chris had been, he used his voice in a way where his leadership was really appreciated and valued and impactful. You know what I mean? And that's largely, I think, because they were younger rosters. Well, the Clippers are a bunch of old dudes,
Yeah.
and they just got to the point where they didn't want to hear from him anymore. It's really unfortunate because you're talking about a legend who was going to retire in that Clippers jersey. Now we'll see what he does. But middle of the night, I mean, they ended up meeting at like almost 11 o'clock local time in Atlanta. Chris Paul and Lawrence Frank, the head of their front office, because they were delayed on the tarmac for hours, like 3-4 hours, if not more, heading into it. So just messy as all get out. If you guys remember when the Clippers put a beating on the Kings in the preseason, I thought they were going to be pretty good.
Yeah. Same.
And now they're 6-16, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Is there? He said he's going to be done after this year, but is he going to play again? You think someone looks into going after Chris Paul?
I mean, maybe. I think, trying to think, somebody floated a team last night. I don't know why I'm blanking on who it was. I could see it.
Weren't the Lakers
but-
mentioned?
Yes, that's who it was.
Yeah.
David
I mean,
Stern.
to me,
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously the relationship between LeBron and Chris is really good. We'll see what happens, but it's no matter what you think of Chris, that is a brutal way to go out.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping he doesn't go out that way for sure.
It's not the first time he's kind of rubbed people the wrong way, though, either, both on and off the floor. Just you wonder if maybe
For sure.
the price that you were willing to pay with Chris Paul around in the past is no longer commensurate with his physical skills. If there's teams that are just like, yeah. So, of course, he'll end up a King. Sammy McJones.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, he's
Yeah.
only on, I know you're joking, but like, maybe. It's like a 1 year, 1 year, $3.6 million deal.
Yeah.
It's got some similar dynamics to Westbrook, to be honest, where the back end of your career, like so far, for the most part, I've heard a few things, but like Russ's voice and his presence have been appreciated by the Kings, right? Well, that's not been the case in his last couple of stops. And I think the worse it gets, I think he was pretty frustrated by not playing the other night. And so you see these dynamics that there's a nice edge component when it comes to guys who, like, if we're being real, these guys could put the ball down right now and get coaching jobs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in terms of voice, Chris Paul's going to look around and be like, all right, Ty Lue, love you. Okay, James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, but I'm going to tell you exactly what I think, whether you want to hear it or not. And they kind of forget that they're sitting there on a veterans minimum deal.
Well, then we get to our Sacramento Kings, who lost again last night in Houston. Max Reynaud with a career-high 25 points. I saw a blurb earlier this week from you that I don't know what the verbiage was. It was like the Kings are one of the teams monitoring the Ja Morant situation in Memphis. Sam, my question is this. Are the Kings really monitoring the Ja Morant situation in Memphis?
I love your dog says hello.
Hello.
The I love your like I don't like Sam's reporting
I
voice.
don't
That's a
like
good
Sam's reporting.
yeah.
I
That
do
was
not-
it.
I
I
did
heard
not-
that.
I actually took $10 off my subscription because of that reporting.
For you, Dave, although you can get to the same information. I mean, I should circle back and find out if that framing is the same as it was before. I mean,
Gotcha.
it's been an on hold situation from the Kings' point of view and a lot of other teams' point of view, and the thinking is really just waiting it out to see if the price tag drops significantly. So it's they are one of those teams that it's kind of like we might talk about it if it's it's something where they're just getting rid of the guy. You know what I mean? Um, we're certainly not there yet. Memphis is not showing any desire to trade him at this point. And if anything, I think if they did, they'd be acting like it was, peak Ja Morant. So, but I think because they know that they can't move like that, and I wrote about this in that piece, is like they're trying to just win games and they're going to get Ja back pretty soon from that calf injury. And they've, I forget what they did in their last game, but they had won 5 out of 6, and Ja was really engaged on the bench, and he was actually like coaching with the same coaching staff that he battled with a month ago. So, I don't know how it seemed pretty genuine, but we'll see if it keeps up, and we'll see what happens with Ja.
Sam, I think we've all been kind of referencing the date of December 15th. That's a day when some of the guys that signed in the offseason could be available, and it feels like it opens a door for more opportunities for trades. Is that date that significant? Like, do you anticipate stuff truly starting then, or is it just that's kind of the opening that's not a hard deadline like the trade deadline?
It just picks up the conversations. I would love to. This is the part of the job that's always been fun, but it drives me crazy. Is like we obviously we know this is true. We know that trade conversations pick up. The OCD part of my brain would love to know like the data on exactly how many more trade conversations happen once that date comes. In the first week versus before, because I can't sit here and tell you it's a 30% uptick or a 40% uptick, but all it means is that all those contracts, as you guys know, that were signed in the summer are now eligible to be traded. For Kings purposes, that does mean that like, there's probably a discussion at some point with the Warriors about Jonathan Kaminga. Like, is there a different version of this that we can get to? Although I think is John's number or sorry, his date a little bit farther down the line,
Yeah, I think
guys.
so because of that
Yeah,
extension. I
yeah,
believe it is.
right. Maybe mid-January. It's
Yeah.
certainly before the deadline. But that's what it means. You can put more guys in a deal, and it's optionality and flexibility, and that is what you need, especially given how hard it is to pull trades off with this current CBA.
We haven't. I was not here last week, so you and I haven't talked. I think since or on the air since your visit with Scott Perry, where he threw me under the bus at the end. Did you?
Where he laughed at you.
He laughed. I love the first line was laughs in parentheses. Was your? I did think weirdly enough of all the stuff in that conversation. My eyes zoomed right to him speaking on autonomy, and that did not seem that it was it was started by you. That he made it a point to say that he does have full autonomy, and then you rightfully followed up on that, and you had a great conversation. But that's what I took away from it. It does sound like, whether you believe it or not, that he's being very clear that he has full autonomy to do what they need to do to do what he wants to do to rebuild, refresh, whatever with this club.
No, yeah, that's right. I mean, it's funny. Some of the reaction to the interview from readers and even people in the industry, people in the league, was that there's a lot of GM speak. There was a lot of call it propaganda or kind of. But I thought he was actually more substantive than it seemed, because yeah, he said a bunch of things, 5, 6 different ways, that are talking points. But to your point, Dave, to right out the gate, first question, not continue going down the road of the actual question that was asked,
Yeah.
and instead, unsolicited deliver a message that, just so people know I have autonomy. I mean, to be honest, that's like, I think the fans should like hearing that, because
Yeah.
it's also a little bit, I mean, it shows, I'm trying to think how to say this, like, it shows a level of self-assuredness on Scott's part, that, like, because politically, to say that publicly means that, I mean, I don't know if there was discussion prior between him and anybody with the Kings group about, hey, I'm probably going to say something like this, but like, there was no, they didn't try to, ask me about which questions I was asking or try to control the interview in any way, to their credit, because I just don't work that way. And he says, yeah, I'm in charge here when it comes to the roster. Um, that is a significant thing, even if it ultimately, we've seen this before when, Monty McNair and Wes Wilcox, the first probably year and a half, actually seemed like they were running the front office and the roster.
Because they were.
And then next thing, yeah, exactly. And then, from there things change. So it's to be determined if that continues. For now, it's I think partly is I think he's almost speaking to Vivek in that interview,
Mhm.
like saying we're going to publicly state that this is going to take a while, and asking for that patience and asking for that runway. Because I mean, the thing that I do like about Scott, in terms of not only his experience but just his wiring, is that he's old enough to, to not lose sleep at night worrying about, every little thought that Vivek has. He's just too old for that. You know what I mean? And he's young enough to have the energy and the and the wherewithal to do the job. But that's a different dynamic than, I mean, it's nothing against Monty at all. Monty was a first time GM. Like,
Yeah.
that's like, in terms of formula, that is a formula that is ripe for the owner to come in and say, man, you should be happy I gave you this job.
Yeah.
Not that it was like that, but Scott's had 30 years in the NBA, and he's trying to turn this thing around now.
Well, that's I will say it's worth watching, because
Yeah.
I wouldn't be mad at the Kings either for this as we say goodbye, Sam. But I would note this: Scott said that unprompted. I haven't seen Vivek at a game in a couple weeks,
It's been a little while.
Yeah.
but I believe he was in
not been
Houston.
around.
I think he was in Houston at the game last night. I heard.
Oh, okay.
So look, I mean, if I'm being a conspiracy theorist, and again, this isn't a shot at the Kings, I'd be fine with this. If there was some sort of conversation that was going to greatly reduce publicly and privately ownership's effect on team decisions on the floor, and they wanted to get that out there and make sure people knew, combined with fine, Sam. I think it's worth watching. I think it's worth watching and seeing both those things together. I don't know that that's a coincidence or not, but who knows? Sam Amick of The Athletic joins us each and every week, and his dog is, no offense, dude, the best part of the interview.
Yeah.
That is a cute-ass dog, dude.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank
there
you.
she is.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye, puppy.
Thanks, Sam.
And bye-bye, Sam.
See you guys.
See ya.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. We'll take a break. Why did I just crumble up?
I was thinking the same
Why
thing.
did I do that?
I don't know.
I just crumbled up my rundown.
Yeah.
What's next?
It's a lot of hard work in that.
There is. I didn't mean to do that. Because my half of the show's over. Sorry. That's when we come back. 4 Down Territory. Who you got tonight? Week 13. Ugh.